Okay, next we're going to cook something for you that's a little bit different than what you've ever seen. First of all, we've preheated our 8-quart roaster, and this is what we're going to cook: a roast beef, some vegetables, and a cake for dessert, all in one unit here. Now, with the roast beef, what we've done is we've cut little slots in it, and we've put whole garlic cloves in. We've probably got about 8 or 10 of them in there. So we're going to take the roast, and we're going to lay it in this preheated 8-quart roaster. So we're going to sear it and brown it. Remember, if you're going to sear or fry anything, you always want to preheat it first. So we're going to let that start browning. And then over here, we're going to mix up a cake mix that we're going to cook inside with the roast. So we're just going to use a Betty Crocker cake mix. And it calls for 3 eggs, and it also calls for 1/3 cup of cooking oil. Now normally you put oil in a cake, because normally when you bake a cake in the oven, you don't put a lid on it. So what happens is the moisture in the cake would just evaporate. So we have a pretty small oven here once we put the cover on, and one of the benefits of this type of cooking is being able to actually bake a cake without having to add any extra oil. Alright, so the roast is searing up nice. So we're just going to mix the cake up. Now this is going to be a chocolate cherry jubilee cake. It's upside down. So it's very easy to do, and it's very impressive if you have friends over. Very simple, it's very easy. So once the roast is finished searing, we're going to put some onions in with it. Then we're going to add these potatoes. We're going to add these carrots. And then we're going to put the cake on top of the roast and the vegetables. Just going to add a little bit of water. Okay. Let's have a look. See how the roast is doing. It's searing up very nicely. So it's releasing from the pan, so we're going to turn it over. Oh, it's beautifully brown. Alright, now we're going to add some onions. Then we'll add some seasoning. Adding lots of onions and seasoning, lots of onions I should say, makes for a really nice gravy. Because one of the things you're going to notice is the roast is going to shrink very little when it's cooked this way on top of the stove. We're going to put some carrots and some potatoes in with the roast. Now we've got the roast on the temperature right now on the stove. It's approximately medium high. There's going to be a fair amount of food in there, so it's going to take a fair amount of energy to actually be able to cook it. Okay, now we're going to put some cherry pie filling into our utility bowl. And this is the bottom now, but when we turn the cake over, because it's an upside down cake, it's going to be the top. We did grease the pan, so it'll help the cake to release when it's finished cooking. Okay, so we're just going to pour the cake mix right on top of the cherry pie filling. Spread that around a little bit. Now this whole meal takes about 40 to 45 minutes to cook. Very simple, very easy, very fast. Okay, here's where we use our utility rack. So I'm going to put a little more seasoning on the vegetables. I'm going to cover the vegetables with the utility rack. Now we're going to set the cake on top of the roast and the vegetables. Very simple. And now we're going to use the larger utility bowl as a lid. Now we're going to leave this on medium-high until it just starts to bubble out the sides a little bit, and the lid will start to float. It'll be hot to the touch right in the center. So we're just going to leave this go. It'll take about 5 or 10 minutes for it to heat up, and then we'll be able to turn it down to low. We're going to cook it for about 10 to 15 minutes a pound. It depends how you like your roast done. All right, so we'll be right back and when we turn the roast down to low. Okay, we've had the roast on for a few minutes. It's been on medium the whole time, and you can see it's just bubbling out of the sides a little bit, and the lid is very hot to the touch right in the center. So now we're going to turn it down to low, and we're going to cook it for about 30 minutes on low. It's only about a 3-pound roast in there, so about 10 to 15 minutes a pound is plenty to cook it. So we'll check back in about 30 minutes. It's been about 30 minutes since our roast has been turned down to low, so let's have a look and see how it's doing. Remember, the cake is on top. I'm going to tip the lid back away in case there's any moisture on the underside of the lid. We want to make sure it runs away from the cake. Look at the cake. It looks beautiful. Okay. Now with the cake, what we're going to do, remember the cherries are on the underside, so this is going to be an upside down cake. We're going to set the plate on top. We'll flip it over and we'll let that cool on the side. That's for dessert. And then we'll be ready to serve the roast beef and the vegetables. Okay, so here's our cake. That we'll get to show you later. And then we'll have a look over here. We'll take out the roast and we'll let you see all the juice to make a real wonderful gravy.